Learn English through story. Whispers in the night. It was late autumn when Rowan first heard the whispers. He had just moved to a remote village nestled at the edge of an ancient forest. The village was small and isolated, its residents few, but they were welcoming enough. Rowan had grown tired of city life, yet the noise, the endless demands, the shallow connections that left him feeling hollow. When the opportunity to purchase a small cottage in the village presented itself, he took it without hesitation. The cottage sat at the very edge of the forest, its wooden structure weathered by years of neglect but still sturdy. Rowan found comfort in the solitude it offered. He spent his days chopping wood, repairing the roof, and cleaning out the remnants of the previous owner, a reclusive old man who had passed away quietly in his sleep. The villagers spoke little of him, only offering cryptic comments about how the old man kept to himself. As the days grew shorter and the nights colder, Rowan found himself drawn to the edge of the forest. There was something about it that called to him a stillness, a mystery hidden in its depths. On certain nights, when the wind was just right, he thought he could hear something, a faint murmur, like voices carried on the breeze. At first, he dismissed it as nothing more than the wind rustling through the trees, but the whispers grew louder with each passing night. One evening, after a long day of work, Rowan sat by the fire in his cottage, sipping on a mug of hot tea. The night was cold, and the wind howled outside, but the warmth of the fire lulled him into a peaceful drowsiness. Just as he was about to doze off, he heard it again, the whispers. This time, they were unmistakable. He sat up, listening intently. The voices were soft, almost like a gentle hum, but there was a distinct rhythm to them, a cadence that suggested language. He stood, heart pounding, and moved toward the window. The forest loomed dark and silent beyond the clearing, but the whispers persisted, growing louder, more insistent. Rowan felt an odd pull, a compulsion to follow the sound. He grabbed his coat, lit a lantern, and stepped outside into the night. The wind bit at his face as he walked toward the forest, the light from his lantern casting long shadows across the ground. The whispers seemed to guide him, beckoning him deeper into the woods, where the trees grew dense and the underbrush thick. The further he walked, the clearer the whispers became, though he still couldn't make out the words. They swirled around him, disorienting and alluring all at once, filling his mind with a strange sense of both fear and curiosity. He had no idea how far he had gone when the trees suddenly parted, and he found himself in a small clearing. In the center of the clearing stood an ancient stone well, covered in moss and vines, as if it had been forgotten for centuries. The whispers now emanated from the well, louder and more distinct. Rowan felt his pulse quicken, a mix of dread and excitement washing over him. He stepped closer, his breath fogging in the cool night air. As he stood at the edge of the well, peering into its darkness, the voices became clear for the first time. "Come closer, broken bar, come closer, broken bar," they whispered, faint but unmistakable. Rowan hesitated, feeling a chill run down his spine. Something deep within him told him to turn back, to leave the forest and never return. But he couldn't move. He felt as though his feet were rooted to the ground, held there by the strange pull of the whispers. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The voices responded in unison, a soft, eerie chorus. "We are the forgotten, the lost, we are the ones who were left behind." A shiver of unease passed through Rowan, but his curiosity got the better of him. "What do you want?" he asked. "To be remembered," the voices replied, their tone almost pleading. "To be seen, to be heard." Rowan felt an overwhelming sadness wash over him, a sense of longing so profound it nearly brought him to tears. He didn't understand why, but he felt a strange connection to the voices, as if they were calling out to something deep within him, something he had long forgotten. "You can hear us," the whispers continued. "You can help us. Will you listen?" Rowan hesitated, but the pull was too strong to resist. He knelt beside the well, peering into its depths. The darkness seemed to stretch on forever, but as he stared into it, he began to see shape as the faint, ghostly figures moving just beyond the edge of his vision. "We were once like you," the voices whispered, "living, breathing, dreaming, but time forgets all things. We have been trapped here, in the silence of the night, waiting for someone to hear our call." Rowan's heart pounded in his chest. "How can I help you?" he asked. "Remember us," the voices said, their tone urgent now. "Speak our names. Tell our stories. Keep us alive in your memory, and we will be free." Rowan didn't know what to do. He didn't know who they were or what stories they wanted him to tell. But the sadness in their voices, the desperation, stirred something deep within him. He felt a strange sense of responsibility, as though these forgotten souls had reached out to him for a reason. "I don't know your names," Rowan said quietly. "You will," the voices replied. "You will remember, in time." Rowan stood, backing away from the well. The whispers faded as he returned to the path, but they left a lingering echo in his mind. As he made his way back to his cottage, he felt as though he was carrying a weight that wasn't his own, a burden of forgotten lives and lost histories. In the weeks that followed, Rowan couldn't shake the feeling that the whispers were still with him. Every night, as he lay in bed, he could hear them faintly, calling to him from the forest. During the day, he found himself thinking about the well, wondering who the voices belonged to and what had happened to them. The villagers were tight-lipped about the forest. When Rowan asked if they knew anything about the well, they would quickly change the subject or offer vague answers, as though the topic made them uncomfortable. One evening, Rowan visited the village's elder, a woman named Mira who had lived there for as long as anyone could remember. She was old and frail, but her eyes were sharp with wisdom. "I've heard the whispers," Rowan said cautiously, unsure of how she would react. "I found a well in the forest." Their weary broken bar voices. Mira's expression darkened. She leaned back in her chair, her gaze distant. "You should not have gone into the forest at night," she said softly. "There are things in that place best left undisturbed." "Who are they?" Rowan pressed. The voices are broken bar. "They said they were forgotten." Mira sighed deeply. "Long ago, before this village existed, there was a settlement near the forest. It was said to be prosperous, but something terrible happened. A sickness spread through the people, wiping out the entire settlement. Those who survived fled, abandoning the sick and the dying. The village was lost to time, buried beneath the trees, forgotten by the world." Rowan felt a cold shiver run down his spine. The voices are broken bar. "They want to be remembered." Mira nodded. "They are the souls of those who were left behind. They have been trapped there, in the silence of the forest, waiting for someone to hear them." "Is there a way to help them?" Rowan asked. Mira looked at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. "Perhaps. But be careful, Rowan. The dead are restless. Their longing can be dangerous. If you open yourself to them too much, they may take more than you are willing to give." Rowan left Mira's home with more questions than answers. The weight of the voices pressed down on him, their sadness lingering in his mind like a fog. He couldn't ignore them, but he also feared what might happen if he became too involved. That night, Rowan dreamed of the well. In his dream, the forest was alive with movement, the trees whispering in a language he couldn't understand. The well stood in the center of the clearing, glowing with a soft, eerie light. The voices called to him, louder and more insistent than ever before. When he awoke, he knew what he had to do. Rowan dressed quickly, grabbing his lantern and heading out into the night. The forest loomed before him, dark and silent, but he wasn't afraid. The whispers guided him once more, drawing him deeper into the woods until he reached the clearing. The well stood before him, ancient and forgotten, just as it had in his dream. The whispers swirled around him, filling his mind with fragments of memories, glimpses of lives that had been lost to time. Rowan knelt beside the well, his hands resting on the cold stone. "I'm listening," he whispered. The voices responded, their tone urgent and pleading. "Speak our names. Tell our stories. Remember us." As Rowan sat there, the names began to come to him, as though they had been buried deep within his mind all along. He spoke them aloud, one by one, each name bringing a new wave of whispers, a new story waiting to be told. For hours, he sat by the well, listening to the voices, repeating their names, honoring their memories. And, as he did, he felt the weight of their sorrow begin to lift, the cold grip of their longing loosening. When the first light of dawn broke through the trees, the whispers finally fell silent. Rowan stood, feeling both exhausted and relieved. The voices were gone, but their presence lingered in the air, a quiet peace settling over the forest. As he made his way back to the village, Rowan knew that the souls of the forgotten had finally found rest. He had heard their whispers, honored their memories, and in doing so, had freed them from the silence of the night. But he also knew that the forest would never be the same for him. It would always be a place of whispers, a place where the past and the present intertwined in ways that could never be fully understood. And sometimes, when the wind was just right, Rowan would still hear the faintest of whispers, a soft, distant, and filled with gratitude. I hope you enjoyed the story. If you enjoyed, then please like and share this video, and don't forget to subscribe our YouTube channel. Thank you for watching.